Good morning, everybody. This is Doug. Welcome to What's the Hazard? It is Friday, June 9th. A beautiful morning here in Omaha, Nebraska. I love these nice, cool, low humidity mornings. I enjoy stepping out and drinking my coffee, walking the dogs. It started off as a great day. I hope you're having a great day and had a good week. I am excited to introduce my guest. You've met him and heard him before, Pete Susca, the owner of OpEx Safety, friend and colleague, and he's coming to us. Looks like, are you in Connecticut? It looks like Connecticut.
Yes, it is Connecticut.
Okay, the background reminds me of Connecticut. Nice bookshelves and nice, beautiful wood finishes and things. Well, it's good to see you, man. Good morning.
Well, it's a pleasure to be back.
You've been on the road, yes?
Yeah, I was just in Texas at the ASSP conference.
Yeah, I saw a number of people posting about the conference. It sounded like it was a great conference. I saw your presentation. You were giving a presentation that got a number of posts and sounded like it went well. So,
yeah, I guess I think we're back, right? You know, after COVID, I think we're back to. I think they probably had 6,000 people there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was a well-attended event.
Good. And where was the conference held? Was it in
San Antonio?
San Antonio. Oh, yeah. Right on the boardwalk there, and
right next to the Alamo.
Nice, right next to the excellent. And so, you were a speaker. Do they approach you about doing a presentation, or do you submit?
No, I submit.
Submit a proposal for a presentation.
Yeah.
Very good.
And I've been doing it probably for the past 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. So they know you. They know
do.
What you get when. Yeah. Very good. I have not gone to conferences for a while, man. You know, when I was with OSHA and there was someone else footing the bill, it was easy to get. And then I was trying to get continuing education units and credits, and so we got technical and management training every year, and it was fantastic. And as you probably are, well, I mean, when you were on your own, you are looking at, taking a week out of your work activities and paying for this out of pocket and those kind of things. And it becomes this cost benefit analysis every time. And when I let my credentials expire, when I let them lapse a few years ago, it became less urgent for me to attend conferences, but I miss it. There is, it's a great opportunity to meet some new people and to hear some new ideas. And so,
it's my way of giving back to the profession that's given me so much. My whole shtick is kind of broadening the profession. I think we do a really good job of the technical aspect and digging a deep hole. I'm trying to broaden the trench, if you will.
We're good at vertical. Yeah, we
are. And we're moving out of that. You can see it slowly. But yeah, I'm really trying to make safety an element of the way organizations function rather than its own kind of discrete thing to fix.
Yes. And that is the entire point of the conversations we've been having, which are incredibly interesting. I just sent your articles, your ASSP articles, to another colleague of ours who I would love to get you in front of, because I think, what you talk about, that, limiting that, safety island aspect of what we do is so critical to really getting a handle on this stuff. And so this is our third visit. This is the second in a series. Our first visit was somewhat introductory, so everybody in the audience could get to know you. The response to your first presentation was outstanding. Everybody loves what you talk about, because I think we all listen to what you're saying and we all realize, oh yeah, that's exactly what, I can't get my head around it. I can't necessarily articulate it, but we all know that what you're saying is critical. And so we started this series of discussions. They're based on these articles that you've written. The first one was a month or two ago. This will be our second in that series, our third conversation. And I want to start it off by, this is really important because I am working with a company right now, and certainly they will remain nameless, but I think the conversation that you have to offer is really important to this company. There seems to be a bit of a divide between how the C-suite, the executives view things, and how the plant people view things. And I have an opportunity right now to be working with the plant people, and that's my wheelhouse, man. I am, just boots on the ground, talk to the employees guy. I don't know what to say to C-suite people, which is why, your conversation is so critical. But I'm going to read something that I just pulled out of one of your articles this morning. To drive safety forward in a sustainable manner, we can no longer treat it as an independent variable. The reasons for safety success and failure are always related to the health of the organization as a whole. And this comment is really a sweeping statement, And I was wondering if we could just start there and expound on that a little bit. I think it relates to what you were just saying about your effort to broaden the span of safety in organizations. Let's start there.
Yeah, it's just come from years and years. You and I have been in this for a long time, and it's kind of like a tracker. You see those old Western movies where they have the tracker,
Oh, yeah.
right? You know what I mean? And that person, they don't have to see an obvious person on a horse. They're seeing the signs of that long after that person has passed by, right? And that's kind of what I am looking at. I'm looking at the signs. I'm looking at things that are somewhat subtle, that when I follow them, what I find is those same reasons for those signs are attached to other things that we value, and that those values are being impaired also the same way that safety is being impaired, because the foundation, and I just did this presentation the other day. I talked about 3 levels of decision making in an organization. Level 1, which what I'll call corporate and business unit level. So the executives at the corporate level, the executives at the business unit level make a decision about what business we're going to be in, what plant is going to make what, how much they're going to make, what customers they're going to serve, what profitability they need to have. All of those decisions get made up there, right? And decisions and decision making is a benefit risk balancing, right? We're looking for benefit, but we're also should be cognizant of risk. Risk not just impacting benefit, but risk impacting the other things that we value and that we're trying to achieve. So if we're looking for profit, are we balancing quality with profit? If we're looking for a cost reduction, are we balancing safety, right? All of those things, right? So if that first decision isn't balanced, and this goes to what you were talking about, that imbalance comes to the operation, the plant. Okay. So that decision making then comes to the plant. Hey, we need to move this. We're going to shut down a facility, and we're going to move everything from that facility to your plant, Mr. Plant Manager. Okay. Now, if we haven't thought about the safety aspects of that thoroughly, then who has to make those decisions? Well, the plant does. Okay. So now the plant gets all these balls they have to juggle in the middle of trying to do what they do every day. And if they're reactive, they're already behind. Now they're even more behind. Okay. And because now they got space limitations, they've got machine guarding, they've got, where am I going to put the product now of all this new equipment? Nobody's figured that out completely. And the capital expenditures haven't been allotted because nobody realized the significance of the problem. Okay. So now you're a plant manager. You're already swimming in the deep end of the pool without the little, thing. And now you can hand it a bunch of lead here. Right. And now the plant leader is like, well, I need CapEx. Now to try to get CapEx from a plant is a heck of a lot more difficult than putting CapEx in the original business decision. Okay. So now it may take them years to CapEx their way out of, if it's even possible, to CapEx their way out of that problem. So what ends up happening, we put in the lower cost controls, okay, which
Right.
either come from CapEx or they come from OpEx, which is, PPE and all training and all those things
Sure.
come out of OpEx. Okay.
Right.
And so now what do we got? We've got these fatality hazards, serious injury hazards controlled with good day controls,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they had no other choice. They had to do something.
Right.
And now, even if it was a temporary measure, it becomes a long-term measure. So now let's go to level 3 decision-making, which is the workers. So now they have a choice now that you want to be productive, you want to be safe. That's a choice because I've given you all of these choice controls.
Mm-hmm.
Training, procedures, PPE are all choices at the coal face, right? So now they're being buried by being productive and having extra stuff to do to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
And the bottom line is, as you know, when people are put in a squeeze, they want to be productive.
Right.
And
of course.
So you can see how the failure gets set up.
Yeah, it is that efficiency thoroughness trade-off that we read about and talk about. But at that point, we've put the employee in a position where we really haven't given them good choices. They are choosing the least worst option.
Well, we've chosen for that. We've put them in that situation of making a choice that they shouldn't have to make.
Right. Exactly.
Because this should have been designed in a way where there was an airbag in there, right?
Yeah,
or we've eliminated the hazard by design.
Mm-hmm.
We just passed it through.
Right. And so ideally at that upper level decision making, there should be somebody who understands those consequences involved, but they're not usually given a seat at the table, are they? I mean, at that level.
Well, here's the way that I couch this. I talk about hazard gatekeeping, and what I mean by that is every single person at the corporate level, at the business unit level, needs to be a gatekeeper of hazards and exposures coming through them, okay, in their decisions. You remember the story about the grain silo situation, right? That person who made the decision that we were going to hold on to poor quality grain for a long period of time, that was a sales decision. Okay.
Right.
The salesperson had no responsibility for safety. And if you have no responsibility, then you have no interest in making a decision for something that's not your responsibility, which is, the safety implications or risk implications associated with storing that grain. We saw the benefit. I mean, the benefit was clear. We were going to make money on that, but we weren't seeing the risk. The plant saw the risk. The plants were complaining about the risk.
Right.
Okay. So what I teach these executives is how to be decision makers at that level within the scope of their decision making with regard to hazards and exposures. We give them responsibilities. We give them tools to do that. If they need advice, then they pick up the phone. And the first level of advice needs to come from the plant, which is, hey, if we do this, what are the implications in your world? And how do we do this well or not do this at all so that you can stay balanced?
Absolutely. I mean,
that's got to be a responsibility first, or nobody picks up the phone.
Right. I love that description, though, that each of these individual decision makers at the executive level are responsible for a certain defined area. Typically, I would assume we still break things out that way. For whatever reason, maybe there's a historical reason for it. Maybe there's an organizational reason for it, but they have that little span of control. And if their decisions, if they're not responsible for safety related decisions, then why would they make safety related decisions? It would, it really is of no consequence to them.
Exactly.
But the downstream consequences manifest
and I hear
plant.
Yep.
Oh, that's intense, man. And I totally get it. And so
well,
how
I hear people. Yeah.
Keep going. No, keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I'm sorry for cutting it.
I was just going to say, I see why that CFO doesn't give a shit. I mean, I'm a money guy. All I need to make money. I'm being held accountable for making money.
Yeah.
And that doesn't really faze me. I think they don't appreciate how coupled everything is.
That is true. And I think the coupling and the understanding of coupling comes back around to how we manage safety, I'm sorry, how we measure safety, right?
Mhm.
It People at that level are measuring safety, and I'll put up a chart. I'll put up a dashboard that a lot of companies have, and in the dashboard is the TRIR rate, and down below are some leading indicator kind of things like we're closing out actions and incident number of inspections done and training completed. And I'm putting quotes around those as leading indicators because I don't think they are.
Well, I was just going to
Um,
ask you that.
yeah, and I say, okay, you executives, when I ask you about the health of your safety program, what one thing on this slide do you focus on? And everyone says TRIR.
Mhm.
Everyone.
Mhm.
Okay. So all the rest of the stuff is just like,
Kind of fluffy.
fluff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fluff. Right.
Mhm.
And so they're really measuring the creation of risk when they see outcomes.
Yes.
Okay. Which is
Right.
way, way, way downstream.
Right.
And doesn't impart a clarity of decision making at their level, because their level is a hazard and exposure decision making. Not So they can't correlate. If they can't correlate that with people getting hurt, then you can see how unclear it is. What do you want me to do,
Mhm.
right? At that level. So that clarity of how we measure um, our capacity to prevent harm has to be clear all the way through the organization, all the way up to them.
Mhm. And how do
And that's
they?
a foundational piece.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm thinking about that, and I'm wondering, how do you, when you're coaching these executives, how do you lead them to that conclusion that they're missing the
Yeah.
boat by focusing
Yeah.
on those lagging indicators, I'll call them, you know?
I wish I could show my little slide, but I'll act it out for you. Okay.
Okay.
So there's this guy, right, in 5 different situations, and there's this rock over this gentleman's head.
Mhm.
Okay. In the first situation, the gentleman isn't even in the area, and that rock is hanging up there. Now, in all of these situations I'm going to talk about, the rock is a big rock, massive,
Mhm.
up pretty high, and it's the same rock, the
Okay.
same rock.
Yep.
Okay. So you
Yep.
got the rock. Now you got the person under the rock. Now you've got the rock falling right next to the person, near miss. Now
Mhm.
you got the rock falling, it hits their arm and breaks their arm. Now you got the rock falling, it hits their head and kills them.
Mhm.
Okay. So you can picture this dynamic now.
Mhm.
And I say to the executives, in which of these situations is the most severe, is the rock most severe, is the highest severity rock? That's what I say.
Mhm.
Which of these rocks is the highest severity? Well, it's kind of a trick question,
It is.
because the
That
definition
doesn't
of
change.
severity is the rock's capacity for harm,
Right.
not its event actuality.
Right. So it's the
Okay.
same
You
every
can get
frame.
scraped. Right. So
Yeah.
now 50% of them will say, oh, the rock on the right, rock on the left, the rock on the right, I'm pointing wrong way. The one that kill you rock
Yes.
is the most severe rock. So you can see what that elicits.
That
What you
mindset
want.
of outcome.
Yeah. It's like we need outcomes to appreciate risk.
Mhm.
That's what that says.
Wow.
Okay. So I say to these folks, okay. And then I tell them that all the rocks are the same, and all
Mhm.
the severity of the rock or the hazard is the same. I say, okay, do you treat the rock on the right, the kill you rock, the one that's killed the person, the same as the hazard rock on the left?
Mhm.
And they usually hesitate. And I said, no, I really need to hear the truth. And they'll
Yes.
say sheepishly, yes, no, we treat this fatality rock much differently
Sure.
than we treat that rock. I said, of course you do. I said, you spend money that you would never have found before. You shut down plant, you shut down operations, you do all kinds of training, you do all kinds of stuff after somebody dies that you don't do for the same hazard and the same exposure that killed that person
Mhm.
before it happens.
Mhm. Oh my God,
And
man.
that's when you can almost hear the aha, the kind of sucking in of air. Okay.
Oh my God,
Oh
yes.
boy. Yeah.
That is
I said,
incredible.
okay. So now I say, okay,
Wow.
you got to go. This is a 12-step program, man. Right? So you got to get these folks to look in the mirror and say, I'm an outcome driven decision maker. And in this case, that's not so good.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
They've got to say that, or else you cannot move them to where we need to move them to.
Is that step number one in the 12 steps?
It is. It's the 12. It is. If it is a 12-stepper, man. I'm telling you, you're changing people's. Yes.
That is incredible.
Yeah, my name's Jane Doe, and I'm gonna, yeah.
Oh my God, Pete, that is huge. I love that.
But you have to do something like that, because I always say to people, look, we safety professionals, we're out there solving problems that people don't even appreciate our problems. We're trying to get money to solve things that people don't see as a problem, right? You're getting money to manage risk when people aren't measuring risk other than you.
Right.
Okay. So if people don't see the problem exactly like you do, and in a common way, and are not prioritizing it the way that you are, right? Then they're not going to buy in to what you're saying. Okay. It's a really, really important point.
Really important.
There are many people in the room that are nodding their heads that don't see what you see in your head.
No kidding. Oh my God.
Okay.
Yes. So, and I've actually got goosebumps, dude. And, I know that I don't thermoregulate very well anymore at my age, but I don't think it's related to that at all. I think it's that is the aha moment. And for a guy that's been doing this for 37 years, I still have aha moments. And that description, the picto diagram that you just described with the rock, and that statement is, I'm just speechless. That's fantastic. That's exactly. So now hopefully you have a few light bulbs going on in the room. They're starting to appreciate that a little bit. Where do you go next with that?
That's a great point. So then I said, okay, so which of these rocks should we put our effort in the most? And they'll say the rock over there where the hazard before somebody gets exposed.
Right.
And I will say to them, look, I said, the only way that you're going to prevent fatalities without learning from fatalities is to treat that rock over there exactly the way you treat the rock over here.
Oh my God. Yep. No doubt. No doubt. And so in that moment, I'm sure they get it. I'm sure these are smart people.
They do.
You're typically speaking to very smart individuals. They get that. How do they leave the room and believe that?
Well, there's much more to it, right? So that's just me tipping them in the right direction. Once I've got them tipped, then, what's in their head now is, all right, so, okay, Pete, great. So what am I supposed to do with this? Okay, let me show you. And I continue to walk them down the road of what is a hazard? What is exposure? What's inherent risk mean? Okay. And then how much risk is okay in your organization? And this is a really critical point. The level of residual risk that I hate to use the word tolerable. I usually call it safe enough, because tolerable is an interesting term. Okay. But it goes back to the policy, because usually what I ask these folks before I even start this is, how safe do you want to be? And look, what is the expression of safety that most people will give you? Oh, we want everybody to go home the way they came to work. That is an outcome measure. Right. So you can see all this kind of, right. So now I got to get them to talk about that same thing from a risk or residual risk perspective, and understand that simply. Okay. So what I try to do is I try to help them find the line between safe enough and unsafe. Okay. And comes out of the policy. It starts with the policy. So somewhere in your safety policy, somewhere in your safety vision is the word safe.
Mm-hmm.
Guaranteed. Okay. So what does this mean?
Mm-hmm.
You've got a policy that says a word and it is not well defined in
Right.
your organization. So how the heck are you going to get there?
Mm-hmm. That's a
Right.
great
It
point.
says,
Yep.
I'm in Connecticut. I want to go to California. How the heck am I going to get there if I don't even know east, west, north, south? Right?
Yeah.
I have
Right.
no clue.
Right.
So the reality is that everyone in an organization needs to be able to look at the same thing the same way. We do it in quality really well.
Okay.
Because we have a measurable way to determine good quality and not so good quality. It's measurable. We
Okay.
don't have that consistency and finite kind of approach for safety in a lot of companies. Even companies that I'm in companies that have management systems for 30 years and they still have problems with this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, just to say, or they're defining safe by that outcome measure as they traditionally have. They, well, if we don't have any recordables or if whatever, we are safe.
Right.
Which is, the absence of something doesn't really make you safe. The absence of injuries doesn't necessarily mean you're safe. So
right.
That's a
so you have to get them to understand what safe looks like, right? So now I will show them a picture or I'll take them out in the plant and say, okay, you say that you don't want anybody to get hurt or come home. You want people to come home the way they went to work or whatever it is. What does this environment look like when it gives you that consistently? Now you get the whistling at a dog kind of look because they don't have no clue.
Right. Right.
I mean, for the most part, they may just say people following the rules. Okay, well, that's part of it. So now let's go back to the rules and see if the rules even get us to safe, because we don't know. The rules may be just regulatory compliance. And,
right.
And and I know that's just not enough.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay. So if you want people to not get hurt, OSHA compliance is not enough in most organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's taken a big chunk out of that risk. So they need to understand where that line gets drawn between safe enough and unsafe in a practical manner. Mm-hmm. And practical executive, practical business unit executive, practical ops manager, practical first line. See what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They all have to be able to see that and make that decision. And believe me, when you draw that, you've seen those matrices in risk assessment that's got the red up in the corner, it's got the yellow in the middle and the green on the bottom. Mm-hmm. And if you say safe enough is green, it's challenging to get to green and keep green, folks.
Right.
Most of your controls today are in yellow.
Mm-hmm.
They're in yellow.
Mm-hmm.
And where yellow meets fatality and serious injury hazards, lockout, tagout. Great example, right? Lockout, tagout is a nice thought. Mm-hmm. Okay. But the reality of lockout, tagout in most companies is people aren't following it.
Right.
Okay. And it's a good day control. It's a seatbelt, not an airbag. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. And if people aren't following that control and you think it's yellow, it's really red.
I was just going to say,
because it's like having no control.
Right. There's no yellow in it's red or green.
It's right. It's exactly right. But they're thinking it's good enough. It's not. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, I'll tell people all the time, a common control, a checklist is a control. Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. A checklist for a pilot and a checklist for a school bus driver who both have lives that they have to protect are two different mechanisms of value and robustness in terms of risk control. Mm-hmm. The pilot is a lot more disciplined around a checklist than a school bus driver is going to be.
Or
same checklist. Same checklist. So you've got to look at the dynamic of the climate and the culture where that control is being applied, and credit or decredit, if you will, that control based on its ability to be effective in that environment.
Oh, wow. Okay, man. So now you're blowing my mind some more here. No, this is great. This is great. I need a little, non-70s related mind expansion, so. But the concept that you just described is really interesting to me, because somehow the pilot has been conditioned to appreciate the importance and consequence of that checklist. And again, checklists are barely controls, right? Just, it's a control, but it's just barely a control.
Yeah.
And I talk to people every day who say, I can't get my forklift operators to do their daily inspections or run their checklist. They just pencil whip it and off they go. And is that because we're not communicating the message clearly, or is it because the consequences aren't nearly as significant?
I think, think about the school bus driver and the pilot and the co-pilot, right? There's a climate. There's a climate. The climate is kind of the dynamic of the work environment, the work environment that you work in, right? Your first line supervisor, your workers, your coworkers, all that is climate. Okay. So even the climate of the cockpit, right, is a much more mutually accountable environment. They're checking each other. Right. When that plane lifts off, they both have their hands on that throttle. Both have their hands on that throttle.
Okay.
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 Yeah. Because it's that critical. Okay. So, that kind of accountability elevates a good day. It is a good day control, but elevates the reliability of that control. It doesn't make it an airbag, but it elevates the reliability of the control. Whereas the school bus drivers in a climate that isn't disciplined like that environment, there's no one else as a co-driver to watch and right. And so that climate, the climate that defines a NASA astronaut or a pilot, all the way up to putting them in that seat, as well as the climate around them, is a deliberate and more reliable environment, more designed for reliability.
Yes.
So to try to change a forklift driver in a climate of a plant that isn't disciplined is very challenging.
Very challenging. Wow, that's really interesting. Can you go back and talk a little bit more about when you were talking about the red, yellow, green, safe enough, based on each of these different levels? Just describe that for me again, man, because I've got to process this.
Yeah. So I was just talking about this at the conference. So I show this, the matrix graphic, which usually is in somebody's risk assessment program.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And on one side is typically severity across the top, severity, right? Which is the rock, how big the rock is, how high the rock is, right? You got catastrophic all the way to ping pong ball. All right. Severity. And then down the left-hand side, what I usually recommend for occupational risk is exposure. How often am I working around the rock? How many people are around the rock? How often do I have to touch the rock? How often do I have to breathe the rock? Whatever it is, right? Exposure. And the reason why I use exposure is it's readily measurable in the workplace, and it's easy to agree on. And if you're going to go out there and measure, really rank risk, I don't see it as much as measurement as it's ranking, measure risk, you want principles that people can see and agree on.
Definitely.
Okay. When you put something like probability of failure down that column, when's the last time this failed? That's not good. Okay. I'm just going to tell you right now, for human beings, that is not good. Right. I don't know how you measure that. And if you're measuring when's the last time somebody got killed doing this, and everybody says nobody's ever gotten killed doing this, now how are you going to rank it? Low. Well, what's it going to be like after that happens? High. Like,
Right.
how
No,
effective is that in helping you predict something?
right. No doubt. That's
Right.
a great description. Yeah.
Right. So you gotta, I mean, yeah, you can modify that risk by events that have happened as a sod modifier, but don't lower it based on the fact that nothing has ever happened. Don't do
Mhm.
that. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just don't do it from my
Well,
perspective.
and
Yeah.
this is one of the difficulties that I found with OSHA specifically is when we talk about that exposure, we used to refer to that side of the, as you said, we used to refer to that as probability, the
Hmm.
likelihood
Yeah.
calculation in this matrix. And if your perspective is from that of OSHA, where you see hundreds of fatalities and accidents every year versus that individual in that plant who has never even heard of that occurring,
Right.
they have no knowledge of that occurring. It's totally different. And so when you come in guns blazing from an OSHA perspective and, oh my God, this is horrible, you guys should be shut down. And they're like, what are you talking about? That disconnect in the communication is really challenging. And I think we see that same disconnect
Yeah.
in our decision making within our organization because of that as well.
Yeah. And this kind of splits what I'll call risk assessment from um, the way that people many times look at risk, which is frequency of occurrence
Hmm.
and severity of
Right.
of the harm. Okay, that's how most people see risk. That's how your average person sees risk. Hey,
Hmm.
when's the last time I got hurt by? Or remember the time I stuck my hand in there? Oh, yeah, I can still see the scar. That's different in every single person.
Right. No doubt.
Right. So now if you're leaving your folks up to that calibration of when something is unsafe, unsafe is all over the lot.
Right.
So you've got this program, a lot of people have this engagement kind of process whereby, you can hit the stop button, literally or figuratively,
Hmm.
and stop a process if you think something's unsafe, but I don't think it's unsafe.
Right.
I've
Right.
never seen it. I've never seen it hiccup before, so I'm not pushing the button.
Right.
Right? Not that I'm not empowered to do that. I just don't think it's unsafe, so I'm not going to do it.
Right.
Now, what have you got? Okay, so I see that a lot.
Yes.
I
That's a
see
great.
that a
So
lot.
contrast the two again, then, because that, as you said, that's what I typically see.
Right. So the other side of it is the what I'll call it the what if. Okay, if someone sticks their hand in here, what could happen to their hand based on our agreement that that's a serious injury, harm, hazard? Well,
Okay.
they could lose fingers, they could lose their hand. Okay, does somebody have to have done that for us to see that? No.
Right.
Right. And that's the practice of risk assessment.
Yes. The one
Not,
we should be engaging in.
when's the last time that happened?
Right. Or does
Right.
that scare you? Even the question, does that intimidate you or scare you? That whole individual risk tolerance issue
Yeah.
just causes a bunch of volatility in our system if everybody is to determine on their own what they're afraid of and what they're not afraid of. You
Yeah.
know.
And I've been doing this for a long time. I've had to say to people, I was in the elevator business, and guys will tell me, "Yeah, I put my hand on the shiv all the time," or I put my hand on the rope. Rope is a cable.
The
And you
cable.
know
Yeah.
what cables are like after a while. They have a
Oh
little
yeah,
thing
man.
sticking out of them,
Oh
rip
yeah.
your skin off, right?
Hmm.
I said, okay, let's say your son's working with you. You let your 16-year-old son put his hand on that? See how that recalibrates
Hmm.
the perspective of hazard,
Right. Right.
right? So now he's not thinking about hazard. He's thinking about risk from the perspective of when's the last time I got hurt doing this.
Hmm.
So what has to happen in their minds is they have to separate hazard from frequency of occurrence.
Right.
So all right, you got to put that exposure aside, that history aside for a minute, and just look at the hazard. Can this rip the hand off your body?
Right.
Can does this have enough energy in it to kill? That's what I use. Does this have enough energy in it to kill? It's a snake venom. It's chemical
Hmm.
reaction. It's
Hmm.
potential energy. It's whatever it is. Enough
Crossing that
energy to kill.
track into that plant.
Yeah, enough
Right.
energy to kill. Yes. Okay. Then it can kill. Has it killed? Doesn't matter. Okay. Doesn't matter right now. Okay. So now let's talk about, do people need to work here? Is it possible for somebody to get into that space? Yes. And then if they are in that space, they could be killed. Yes, we agree. Okay. So then what's preventing them? Now we get to the residual risk, right? What's preventing them from getting in there, and how reliable is that in our work environment? That's the true residual risk.
That's so good. And I agree, because I think the vast majority of companies dwell on that probability piece. Well, that's never going to happen. You know, what's the likelihood of that happening?
That's a slippery slope. Yeah.
Slippery slope. And my comment is usually, I guarantee you there is someone working in this facility today that can and will do that. And so regardless of the fact that you think nobody, what idiot would do that? Well, you've employed them. I guarantee they're here somewhere. And so let's just make sure that we address it. Let's control it to the extent that we're able, rather than just wait to see if this person is going to do it or not.
Yeah, see, that goes back to the rock falling, doesn't it? Right? So if you don't see that as immediate of an issue as this as an immediate of an issue, then you're not going to put the money and the time and the effort into this until that happens.
Yes. And so that concept of safe enough, when you are going from the C-suite down through the chain of command to the employee, I would assume that's all over the board. We have to somehow come to some common definition of safe enough.
Yes, exactly.
Because I'm sure that there's a lot of variability in that.
There's a lot in well-evolved companies, well-evolved safety, practicing companies. It's still the case.
Yes.
It's still the case. And that is the foundation of decision-making. I don't care how many management systems and certifications you've got. That is the foundation of decision-making throughout the organization. And you can see right now that it's dysfunctional.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Right? And
okay.
It's everywhere.
Yeah. And so trying to calibrate that so that we're within a certain tolerance within that tree.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? So when you're trying to rank, and that's what we're doing, we're ranking, right? Saying, okay, this is a high order risk because people are exposed to it all the time and it's got enough energy to kill. And if you want to look at the control, and there's really no control, or if it's a good day control, right? This is a high order situation or concern. Okay. Now, what I tell people is, when you're risk ranking in the principles that we're talking about here, not scientifically, not using numbers to calibrate these things, it's just having a conversation. Is this a big deal? Not a big deal, right? It is kind of like teaching somebody how to shoot a bow and arrow. Did I explain this in one of the other ones?
No.
Okay. Right. So once you got the arrow knocked, you know how to hold the bow and find that resting place and release point and all that stuff. I say to people, I'm going to have you fire 3 arrows downrange. Where do you want those arrows to go? People will say, in the bullseye. I'll say, well, that's a nice thought.
Right.
I said, but there's a better answer. And the better answer is, you want them to be together. A group.
Precise.
Okay? You want them to be in a group. And what is a group? A group is consistency. Okay.
Yeah.
So the principle is consistency before accuracy gives you consistent accuracy.
Oh, yes. I would agree completely.
Right? Because now if we have consistency, we have windage and elevation, just 2 variables. If we got one in the house and one in here or one over there, we got a lot of work to do.
One in the neighbor.
Right. Yeah. Right. Neighbor's cat, whatever,
Exactly.
I mean, you got a lot of work to do. Okay. So now I've brought this down to 2 variables. Now we can agree on those variables. We can measure those things. It's a lot easier. So you want people to be able to be relatively consistent about their thoughts and decisions on where these things get plotted. Not exact, but close.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And then over time, we get more refined.
Yes, we can work on accuracy once we
Right.
have that
Right.
precision, that consistency.
Consistency. Yeah.
I love that. Oh,
Yeah.
that's a great description, man. Where did you come up with all this stuff? Is this just bouncing around in your head
No,
somewhere, or?
it is. But you know where it's come from? I mean, I've spent most of my career up in front of people trying to help them see something that I see quite clearly
Mhm,
that they don't see at all.
mhm.
And I've had to come up with a million analogies and stories,
Yeah,
and I've forgotten. Like I'll go back and read something or find a presentation. Oh, I forgot. I remember when I did this or I did that.
right.
I mean, I'm creating this stuff on a daily basis,
Yes,
and I'll probably create something today that I've never
right.
said before.
And revisiting things that have kind of
Yeah,
filed back in the
and
archives of your brain.
I've done that because my challenge in life has always been I'm somewhat of a futurist,
Mhm.
and that's not an easy world to live in the world today, is being a futurist. People like problem solvers. Therefore, you need a problem. So
Mm,
I'm bringing you something that isn't a problem, that's going to be a problem. You're not going to listen to me.
right.
Okay. And that's a problem in organizations too. We hire people that are supposed to be predictive, preventive people, but ultimately they're fighting fires with everybody else.
Mhm.
So we're not spending enough time leaving the people whose job it is to see bad coming and prevent it alone.
Interesting.
Okay. We get them into the firefight, we get them into the mud, and then
Right.
then nobody's looking forward. We're just,
Oh, yeah.
dealing with the day.
Mhm.
So my challenge in life, and it's been a tough road, is to try to figure out ways to help people see what I'm trying to say or
Mhm.
explain the same way that I see it.
Yeah. Is it a curse? I mean,
Yeah.
to have this vision to some
It
degree,
is.
a bit of a curse,
It is. It is. It's frustrating
I
as
would imagine.
heck.
Mhm.
Um,
I would imagine.
but
And you see
but
dysfunctional organizations and you recognize it immediately, probably. And dysfunction is a relative term, certainly, but
yeah, yeah.
you see
I,
that dysfunction
I
and you
I
know.
look at it as look. I know if you can clearly state who you want to be, what you want to look like, that's fine. And it doesn't matter to me what that is.
Mhm.
All I'm looking at is your ability to get there, stay on the path, be on the right path, right? That's all I'm doing. I'm not telling people how good they need to be. I'm
Mhm.
not, I don't want to be in that business. It's up to you
Right.
guys.
Right.
I've actually said to people, hey, you're making a lot of money and you're killing a lot of people. Maybe you should lower one of those standards because you're
Uh-huh.
not able to do both. You're just
Right.
not able to do both.
Right. It seems unsustainable.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This should
But
be
exactly.
realistic.
Yeah, that's right. You're not exact. Yeah. I completely agree. That's an interesting comment. But I think, as you said, they need to know where it is they want to go in order to plot the path to get there. So defining that's pretty important.
It's essential. And not only defining it, but painting the picture that everybody sees it in a similar manner and
Mhm.
buys in and says, "Yeah, that's a good place."
Yeah.
That's a leader's job.
Mhm.
That's a leader's job, is to
Yes.
paint the picture of where we're headed and getting people to buy into the fact that we all need to go there.
Yeah. Yeah. So
That's inspirational, right?
have you written the book yet? Do you have a book?
Yeah, well, that's the, I guess, semi good news is I got my book approval the other day.
Oh, fantastic.
Um, and now, so actually now I have to start working. But the complexity of writing a book is mind blowing. And because the publishers, they want to know how many pages, how many figures, how many drawings, why? Because it's an investment for them. And
Sure.
you know what I mean? And I'm like, I don't know.
You got to
This
put
stuff's
the
going to come
picture,
to me.
you got to put the
Yeah.
rock either on the cover or in the introduction somewhere, because that vision, now I can't get out of that rock. I can see it. In fact, I'm going to do, you know how you used to take old paperbacks and you could write in the little margin of the paperback and you could make a movie? Remember doing that as a kid?
Yes.
If you did that
That
or
stick
not,
figure guy.
I would
Right.
usually have
Yeah.
like a hill with a little rock at the top, and then as you flip the pages, the rock would roll down the hill and plow
Yep.
over some family of, probably my family that we were on vacation or
The
whatever.
early musings of a safety guy, right? Right.
Exactly. But I think that I have this vision. Maybe I'll do the illustrations for your book, man. But I am looking forward to your book because this is so enlightening to me. And again, I've been, safety grunt at the floor level of the plant for 37 years and have never really spent a lot of time thinking about the executive level decision making and how that impacts what's happening and how everything is coupled. So if you make a decision about productivity or production rates or raw materials, I mean, I go to my plants and how's it going? They bought a bunch of shitty chemicals on sale in China, and that's screwing up our process line.
Hmm.
And they bought tons of it because it was on sale and they knew they were going to need it. And so, the ramifications of that decision upstream weren't
Yep.
even considered on what's going to happen. And so now they've thrown this volatility into the system. And now, I've never thought about that kind of stuff, man. So for me, this is like an awakening as well. And I'm intimidated, it's intimidating to try to process all of this stuff and get a handle on it, which is why I'm just fascinated by the discussion. But I need it in a book, man, because I love to read. So got to
Well,
get the book going.
I yeah, I mean, one of the reviewers said I need to write 2 books. Is they're probably right, and I again, I thank our friend Tom West
Hmm.
for pushing me in that direction
Good.
constructively. And I think the book really needs to be in the form of is it Who Ate My Cheese kind of book. You ever read that
All
book?
right. Sure, man. Yeah.
Okay. That simple kind of vignette, small chapter. Here's a story. Here's the example. Here's the principle. That kind of
Hmm.
small chunk learning kind of format, I think is a good thing for people, especially today, that just don't have the time or capacity to read a novelette.
Yes, I think that's a great idea. And I read in the morning. I typically read the Daily Stoic. I don't know if you're familiar with Ryan Holiday, but he wrote a book called The Daily Stoic, and it is just one day at a time reflections from the Stoics. Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, whomever. And there's a little quote from the Stoic, and then there's a little paragraph of description. What does that mean to me in my life today?
Nice.
And that's exactly what you do. You take these somewhat complex concepts and put them into these different stories that I can comprehend. And I think a book like that would be really
Yeah.
well accepted and useful.
Yeah.
There are a lot
Yeah.
of books
I
that have
hope
been
so.
written about this stuff that they're brilliant, but they're not useful. Because how do I put that into my world? How do I translate that? So I think
It's
you're onto something.
yeah. Thank you. I hope so. I'm just trying to help. And, before I'm under the ground somewhere.
Just sail off on
Um,
the boat,
yeah. Whatever.
disappear. Yeah.
Um, eh, eh, I did this presentation a couple days ago in San Antonio, and the title was "The Common Leadership Gaps and How to Fill Them."
Hmm.
And what I said to folks is, you know, safety is like a high-rise building, right? So you got a foundation, you got a first floor, second floor, third floor. So there's some foundational principles of safety, and then you got programs, and then you got management systems, and then you got right, and you're kind of moving up the high rise. And I said there are companies that are on the 15th floor of that high rise today that have rebar missing from their foundation,
Hmm.
and I'm going to talk about what that rebar is.
Those gaps.
Yeah, and it's the stuff we were just talking about: safe enough, unsafe, decision making, balance. Um, all of those things are missing in many of the dynamics of these organizations that are pretty far along in safety, and they just don't realize it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
But there is a catastrophic event just waiting to happen. It's just teetering.
well, yeah, and one of the people, and I have people that come up afterwards and are looking for copies or
Oh, I'm sure.
whatever it is, and and one of the guys said to me, he said, "You know something? He said, I went to all of these sessions, and he said, I came back with more problems than solutions. You gave me more solutions than problems. I said, man, thank you. I appreciate that. That's why I'm here.
Wow. That is the ultimate compliment. That's impressive. And I know that when we do training, I mean, you know, a colleague of mine and I are doing a number of 30-hour OSHA classes right now, which is just just a flyover survey of OSHA regulations and hazard recognition concepts. And everybody comes up and says, now I've just got all these problems you've just created for me, because I have this awareness now of all these gaps in my system. And but it's not set up to offer solutions very well. You know, it's not a solution program. It's a here's your problems program. And I feel almost guilty. You know, sometimes ignorance is bliss. You know, give me some freaking ideas how to fix this, you know? And that's where you come in.
I spent, I was the senior corporate auditor and ran the auditing program for United Technologies for our management system for 4 years on a corporate level. And I was a professional bad news bringer. You know, you have an ugly baby is what, you know, is, you know, and how do you explain that nicely? You know, I mean, I would just dump a load of stuff that people needed to do and then get on a plane and go home.
Right. Oh yeah.
And I feel pretty guilty about that.
Yeah.
So I'm working my way out of that. You know?
Yeah. You're paying your debt, man. Paying back. Well, that's what I did for OSHA for a number of years. And I never reconciled that very well. You know, I was always a believer in the mission. People should have a relatively safe and healthy place to work. I get that, man. Who doesn't agree with that? But it didn't really help me to go in and bash their maintenance guys, you know, for having poorly guarded drill presses and grinders and things. That didn't really change anything. If anything, it was maybe momentary, and then they'd fix it to try to appease me. Then I would disappear. And again, it wasn't really solution based. And I don't know how useful that is. I don't know. I mean, I guess there need to be some checks and balances, but offering solutions is really the most important part. Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, I have people say to me, Pete, you know, I got it. Well, I have no idea what to do with it. You know? Okay. Well, you know, I mean, usually when I do this recalibration gig, people are ready to do things. They just either don't have the bandwidth, time. You know, I'm too busy. You know, I'm going to go back into the deep end of the pool when I leave here with all these wonderful ideas. And, you know, I'm still treading water.
Right.
So they need someone to come in like me and just be the hand holder, the coach, the whatever it is, you know, and say, okay, let's bite off this chunk and let's just do this. And let's keep our language moving forward and keep our process moving forward and sustain what we're doing. And they need someone like me to go in there and help them.
You're just kind of a facilitator of sorts. I mean,
yeah, but that's the thing that I would say they don't want to pay for it, but they just don't think they need, but everybody does, because it's difficult. It's difficult to change while you're doing what you do.
Right.
Because they can't stop.
Right. Yes. Well, in the situation I find myself in now, there seems to be a disconnect between, there is no real understanding that our decisions at this level may be having an undesired impact at that level. You know, our decisions are solid and you're making some mistakes at your level. And that disconnect, I think, is dangerous.
Yeah.
And something that needs to be addressed, but it's probably not easily come to. I doubt, you know, executives are quick to blame themselves often.
No, I see a lot of executives blaming the workers.
Sure. Yeah.
And look, from an executive perspective, I can understand why, because they're the ones that opened up their checkbooks and have pushed, you know, probably millions of dollars out for safety's sake. Okay. And they've spent the money. It's not like, you know, that's from their perspective, that's their role is to facilitate the money flowing to fix the things we need to fix. And they feel like they've done that and that the workers have let them down.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I have to reconnect them with that reality.
Yes.
And one of the first things is, how often do you folks go to the plants?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. We do. We do walks. We do these. You've probably seen, the executives come down and they do these Gamba walks, or they do
Right.
these
Yeah.
management walks, right? And I said, okay, great. Well, so what? Tell me a little bit about that process. Well, we have a checklist. We don't have a checklist. We talk to people. We don't talk to people. We look at things, whatever it is. I said, okay. When you find something that just doesn't seem to be right, what do you do? Well, we hand it over to the first line supervisor. And I say to them, that's not your job. And they look at me, and I say, I can do that, right? They look at me like, who are you to tell me what my job is? And I say, let me tell you, it's the job of the folks in the plant to find their own hazards and risks and manage their own controls. So why do you need to go in there and find them for them and give them that? That's the question you should be asking yourself. Why am I finding this obviously wrong thing, and everybody else here seems to be okay with it?
Mm-hmm. That's a great point.
And so I give them, I don't know if I talked this about, I give them these 3 questions, which is, I think we talked about this before, which is, the first question is, and these are questions you answer with your questions, not ask the question. And the first question is, if I see it as a problem, why doesn't everybody else here see it as a problem?
Right.
Or see it the same way I do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then go find that out. Hey, Mr. Supervisor, do you do assessments or safety walks or whatever? Yeah. Let's go do one together. What do you see? See anything? Well, how's this look? Right. Open. You don't say, hey, you knucklehead, this thing's wrong. You don't ever say that. Because what am I evaluating? I'm evaluating their capacity to see it right now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I know I've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, because when I leave, they have to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, I'm leading them to tell me, hopefully, that this is a problem. So now, if they see it as a problem and I see it as a problem, we both see it as a problem, then you go to the next question, which is, okay, so why haven't you fixed it?
Mm-hmm.
And once you get into question number 2 and what's behind question number 2, you quickly go away from that as the problem to other issues that probably and most often go beyond safety.
Right.
Well, maintenance is busy, and I put it back, and they keep moving it back here. Or you're going to hear all of those kinds of other things that are much bigger implications of organizational issues than that pallet sitting in the aisle.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That pallet sitting in the aisle is talking to you, and you're not listening to it.
Mm-hmm. The why.
and it's saying, please understand why I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
Don't move me until you do.
Right.
Okay. And people aren't hearing that. Right. So then the next one is, okay, if you see it the way I see it, and you've moved it, and now it's back. Whoa, we got a much bigger issue in this organization if the organization cannot consistently do what it says it wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes to everything. I'm just going to tell you, it's not about the pallet. It's not about safety. It's bigger than that area. It's big.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. That's an organization that can't keep itself in check.
Right. Yes. That's, oh my God. Yeah. That question of, I've identified it. Why don't you identify it? Or why haven't you seen it? Yeah. That's kind of interesting. That's just sometimes a matter of perception, but why haven't we done anything about it really is the foundational question.
Well, I mean, even that first question is the safe enough, unsafe question. Mm-hmm. It's really what that is, right? So how do you see safe? Does that look safe? Mm-hmm. Right? Is it safe enough? Right? Exactly. Well, what's your standard for safe? And does it pass your standard test? Mm-hmm. Right? Is there a rule? Is there a right?
Yeah.
And what you're going to see sometimes is that that deviation of right has gone on for so long that wrong is now okay.
Yes.
And normalization of deviance, right?
Right.
That wrong is okay for some reason. Go find out why.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a really big deal.
Yeah.
Because that's not the only deviation that's okay here. Guaranteed.
Yeah, once we're on that path of rationalizing these
Go back.
deviations,
Yep.
yes, then there are going to be others that have manifested themselves.
So when people say to me, "Oh, geez, I don't know if my leadership is going to get these concepts, Pete, and all this," let's go do one of those exercises where we walk out on the floor and we track back a few things. It could be a safety thing, it could be a quality thing, it could be whatever it is. They will all come to the same place. And then you will realize yourself, I won't have to tell you, where this is all coming from.
Yeah.
Now the question is, want to do something about it?
Right. Is it
I
important?
can help you. I can help you. You know? You can see the impact it's having. It's not just having a safety impact; it's a cost impact, it's a quality impact, it's a worker satisfaction impact, it's a customer satisfaction impact. It's everything.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh my God.
How do we get into these discussions?
Oh no, my brother, I love it, and this is so interesting to me. There is a lot to unpack in this 45 minutes, the hour we've just spent together. That was an hour, by the way. I don't know how I don't know why time has accelerated so rapidly. I think I seem to be on that, when the bell curve, I'm on that backside and I am screaming down the hill at this point. It goes so fast, but there is so much in there and like you said, solution driven commentary, that we need to get in front. So you got plans to come to Omaha anytime soon? What's your summer look like? You got some vacation planned? Any travel? Any open weeks?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Maybe not right now, but let's talk about it. And let's put something together. Yeah, most definitely.
This is just I can't imagine any company not benefiting from this discussion. As somebody, everybody needs to be having this discussion. I know that there are only 52 weeks in the year, but gosh, I just would really love it if we could have this discussion face to face in Omaha with some of these folks that I work with. So we'll have to figure that out. If people want to get a hold of you, how do they do that? I'm sure that your name and contact information will be in the liner notes of the episode. It doesn't appear on YouTube necessarily. Maybe we can put it down in the notes on YouTube. But when they want to get a hold of you, how do they do that? Email? You want an email?
Yeah, I guess there's three ways. Carrier pigeon. They don't carrier pigeons are extinct.
All the way to Connecticut.
Yeah, you can. I'll give you my phone number.
Please.
860-713-8050.
Okay.
And tell them that Fletch had you call.
Yeah. There's going to be like a 20% bonus if you.
There you go.
If you type in Fletch, Exactly.
And then my email is OpEx, OPX, Oscar Peter X-ray, and the word safety, SAFETY, at cox.net.
Yep.
Or LinkedIn.
Yep. I follow your stuff on LinkedIn all the time, and you're getting tagged all the time by our buddy Tom and other folks. And like I said, I saw some commentary about your presentation down in San Antonio, and it sounded exceptional. I appreciate it, man. And this stuff just blows my mind. Every time we've spoken, I leave better for having had the conversation. So I sincerely appreciate it. I am anxious for the book, though. I need a book, man. I am a book guy. So we got to get this. We got to get this written maybe this weekend. Do you have time to work on it this weekend, or what's?
Jeez, Doug.
I know. I understand, but I love to have it in my hands. I need to read it and touch it and see it. And
it might be easier for me to just do a talking book.
Yes, an audio book.
An audio book, right?
I would love that too. But I will say, I went back this morning. I got my cup of coffee. I sat down and started rereading some of the articles, because I've read through your series of articles one time, and then I've started reading through a second and third time. And there is a moment where in the beginning, it's a little bit too much for me, because I have not been introduced to the concepts before. But there is that light bulb moment when I say, oh, I think I understand what he's saying here. It makes sense. So I go back through the second time. All of a sudden, I was reading this morning, and all of a sudden I get it. So it's not that I'm an idiot. It's that it's just new concepts, and I need to ease my way into them. But as you explain them, they make perfect sense. So I do appreciate that. And I can appreciate your frustration, because it must be frustrating speaking to me and knowing that, I'm a lip reading knuckle dragger,
No, you're not. No, you're not. I mean, I think you're absolutely wonderful at what you do here. And I don't even know what you do in the field, but what you do here is phenomenal.
Well, good, man. I appreciate it. And like you, I think we are both in that phase of our lives and careers where we feel an obligation to give something back. And the way that I give back is to just give people like you who have something to say, the ability to do that. So I think I'll do my part. You keep doing your part. And
can I just say one parting note?
Yes, please.
Which has really nothing to do with safety. My mother-in-law passed away last week. She lived with us.
Man. I'm sorry to hear that.
No, thank you. She was 93 years old, beautiful lady. None of the mother-in-law jokes applied to her whatsoever. She was a fantastic person. And somehow I was able to have her record her life over the past few years in one of these audio recording devices.
Mm-hmm.
And all of those files are now going to her kids, who can hear her for the rest of their lives.
Oh, that's fantastic.
This is a beautiful thing, folks. And to have someone's voice perpetuated for a lifetime, this is a cheap way to do that. Think about doing this for maybe your family too.
That's incredible. I love that. Well, and man, this is why we are recording your voice for posterity as well, or until we're completely banned from the internet totally. But I say something maybe that's too disruptive. But yes, I love the archive. I love the fact that all of this information is archived. People can go back and review it. I know that people have been waiting for the next episode from you specifically. There are a number of folks that I interact with on a regular basis, and they all wait for your episodes. And I guarantee if Pat has the ability to get this posted at some point, that we will get really positive feedback immediately, because everybody loves your message. So I'm going to say thank you and sign off, because I'm getting the stare, which means my time is up. I'm actually going to get charged by the minute after the hour is up. It's the kind of outfit I work with here. But I love it, man. Thank you so much for joining me again. I look forward to just chatting on the phone, catching up, hearing about San Antonio. Have a great weekend, man. I hope you get on the boat. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Pleasure.
Pete. Yeah, keep doing what you're doing, man. And I look forward to being an editor on the book.
Thank you.
At a high rate. All right. Later, man. It's good to see you, buddy. Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend. Talk to you next week.